Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am John, my co-host is Andy, and it is time to talk about the merge episode of Survivor Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, a name that I hopefully won't have to remember much longer. But more importantly, it's time to talk about smoothly integrated product placement. Andy, now that we've reached the merge is the type of event that I usually like to celebrate with a nice, cool, satisfying Starbucks Frappuccino, which from now until November 13th is buy one, get one free from 2 to 5 p.m. Starbucks is actually so satisfying that it's given me no ability whatsoever to transition into a question that might open the show.
I hear you, because right now, as I podcast this in my lavish studio, I'm actually sitting next to my Serta mattress. The trouble with buying beds, I find, is going to a store and actually seeing how they are. It's so much easier to order over the internet. They ship right to your house, and if you don't like it, you send it back. Serta mattresses, it's the way you live.
Oh man, that sounds like heaven. Okay, so now that we've done our own smoothly integrated product placements, let's talk about this episode because, we've been lukewarm on this season. We haven't really formed any sort of opinions, good or bad. It's just kind of existed. Did this episode change anything for you?
For the season, possibly not, but I thought it was a really good episode. I enjoyed it. I think merge episodes often bring a little bit of excitement to them because necessarily they have a new dynamic. And I think this one was no exception. It was interesting and fun to see all the players kind of scurrying about, forming alliances or long-term plans and then dissolving them, that sort of thing. Now, I suppose there wasn't that much. There was basically kind of 2 to 3 ideas floating around, but that was enough. I got a jolt of energy. I found that adrenaline surge that I sometimes get during Survivor that causes me to, shiver a bit, which I'm also a little embarrassed that I get adrenaline watching a television show, but because I was nervous. I was nervous about what would happen. I was invested in the end. And then, as it started to come closer to the end, I was really nervous because I felt like what was going to happen is what happened. So yeah, I thought it was a good episode. You?
I wasn't quite as nervous because I don't know that I was quite as invested. I mean, I'd hoped that Jessica and Cole would stick around because I liked them as a storyline, but I wasn't devastated to lose it because that was more about the potential of a storyline happening that may have never happened anyway. I mean, it just still felt like this episode was a little by the numbers to me. I mean, the merge did, importantly, draw some tribal or battle lines, I guess, as Ben described it, which is always interesting. I like seeing how everybody breaks down and how strong I think that group will hold. This one I can already see where the cracks might possibly come. It still didn't quite get to me.
Yeah, I wasn't crushed when it happened, when the end result happened, especially because I guess I saw it as it was about to happen. Like, right before Jeff reads the votes, my wife asked me who's going home. And I'm like, I think it's Jessica.
Yep.
Yeah, because again, it was more the potential of Jessica, than necessarily what we'd been getting. But yeah, as it was happening, I was legit nervous and anxious and, desired something to happen, that didn't. So yeah, I'm not bummed because of the outcome. I enjoyed the episode of Survivor. It's good to know that, the show still has that juice in it, even if this cast may or may not. And instead of breaking down the story or the episode by plot lines or storylines, especially because, as we kind of suggested, there was kind of 2, I was thinking we could break it down by player. We'll kind of break down each player who did something, who seemed to matter. So we're not talking about everybody. And I think we'll start with the guy who I believe mattered the most, to the person who made the decision of what was going to happen tonight, and that's Ben. His was basically the story, which was that he had the option to stick with I think we're calling the Miawa tribe, the 5 people he ended up post-swap, or go along with this, Hustler Hero Alliance. And what did you think about his decision? Was it the right call?
Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty solid episode and decent decision making. I can't argue with his strategy here. he didn't like how Chrissy was blowing up his spot and their little secretive alliance thing that they had going. I like that. I like that he's still trying to keep that nice and on the DL for a while, just because it helps both of their games. He might have made Chrissy a little bit nervous at some point because we did see her saying, like, you are just pretending to avoid me, right? That was really the only even minor flaw I really saw in his game.
Yeah, for me, like, Ben had the decision of which group to go with, and I think each decision had the same pros and the exact same cons. So I can't even really, maybe this goes back to what I was complaining about last week, is that there aren't really any decisions to, talk about. Because, yeah, I mean, being the 6-7 amongst the, healers probably isn't that great a deal, except that the healers seem to have cracks that could have been exploited. You know, I don't think, if you think you can't jump ahead of Joe in the pecking order, then, you know, you probably think pretty low of yourself. The thing I didn't like is the way he kept talking about Cole being a threat. Nah, man, that idiot ain't a threat.
No, he's really not. I mean, other than you need to talk him up as a threat when you're trying to rally votes to get him out, which, you know, everybody would just be like, oh, yes, very big threat, when really they want Cole gone.
Right. But that's not what he was doing when he was, like, going over the process with Lauren and, like, basically justifying the decision he had already made. But, you know, obviously they didn't want to just completely reveal that. Despite that people on the internet would complain that they, hate that the show never reveals, what the final result is, that they want to have some level of suspense, even though that's basically how it's been edited since, like, episode 1, season 1. But yeah, and he just kept talking to her about him being a big threat, and Mike a bit. And it's like, he is not a threat. This dunderhead is only a threat to himself. Now, if your argument is he's also a threat to his allies, and that's why I don't want to ally with him, I think there's something to that, which is why going to the other side, you know, also makes sense. Now, the risk for going to the other side is he hasn't been around those people in, like, 9 days? Do you really still feel that everything is secure, especially since it's 2 groups of people that you don't really know? It's hard to say.
The thing I liked about it is that when he's targeting the healer's tribe, he's specifically keeping around the person that I think he feels he can most work with in Mike. And I think as long as he's got Mike around, that's probably fine for him. He was probably the only healer that Ben was looking to protect. And once Mike is safe, he's like, yeah, sure, we can take out a healer.
Yeah, now it sounded like, you know, he did have the alliance with, you know, Jessica a bit too. But as he kept saying, you know, throughout this episode last week, you know, clearly Jessica had thrown her lot in with Cole, and he wanted nothing to do with Cole. And in the end, I think that was all it was. I don't even know if it was like a strategic decision, because like I said, I think both are fine choices. I also think they both carry the exact same risk, which I'll get into in a second. But I think he just he couldn't stand being around Cole. And that's kind of the bottom line. He really wanted to vote out Cole, and he still hasn't. But I think the risk for both is, and this is just kind of the unfortunate situation he's put in, Ben destroyed the chances of like 4 people tonight, 4 potential jurors with this move. That could be a problem. Now, look, things could happen, things could change around. As you say, Mike, maybe it's not even 4 if he can continue to work with Mike. Although it could end up being more if, say, Lauren is thrown aside before it's her turn. But if he had chosen to go with those, you know, healers, he would have thrown aside the hopes and dreams of, you know, Christy and Ryan and all of that. So that's right. And I think he recognized that being the swing vote at this scenario isn't great. And that is the one potential flaw, but again, a flaw I don't think he could have avoided, that I'd be interested to see if it happens. Do they hold, you know, what happened to them? Do they hold Ben to blame for it or not? Now, the good news is one less juror, because the person he voted out this time is not on the jury.
Yeah, and specifically, he can always make the argument that, like, hey, listen, we just had to protect ourselves against getting pagonged by you guys, so that was the strategic reason I did it. Nothing against you, potential juror. It was just, you know, I couldn't risk your tribe overwhelming the rest of us.
Yeah, he could say that. They might be like,
sure, it doesn't have to be true.
Yeah, exactly. And then also they might be like, no, screw you, I don't believe you, you know? Whereas somebody like, you know, that had no ties to him, like Chrissy or Ryan can say that, and like, oh yeah, no, sure, absolutely, you were on the other side. But it's like, Ben, you lied to me. Like, that's the thing. He lied to them. In fact, so that's the one problem. But either side he was going to lie to. If he feels more comfortable working with the people he knew early on, yeah, I believe it. It's fine.
And speaking of those people that he knew early on, let's talk Chrissy, because she was the other one who potentially was calling shots tonight. What do you think of her?
Yeah, so Ben made the decision. I think Chrissy called the shot. And we saw the scene where she is laying out what should happen, what should the targets be. We saw her sniff out that, Joe seems to be a threat, to do wild card things, to have an idol, which he did. It's partly because he was sitting there bragging in front of everybody about the time he found an idol and played it. Not that was going to stay a secret anyway. So
right.
Of all the things Joe did, that was the one I didn't really have much of a problem with. Seeing, that potentially it could, Cole could be an issue. Let's find the least likely target for an idol to be played. I think, and she was able to coax everybody. She was able to talk them through a plan A and a plan B. Although I kind of get the feeling that it was, by the time they went to Tribal, it was no longer plan B, but rather, let's just do that. Because I didn't see a lot of scrambling at Tribal and knowing looks to each other, we've changed the plan. But I thought, she did a really good job. I feel like everybody was, whether it was completely her or not, edit wise, it was completely her. And I think she deserves the credit for that.
Yeah. And it was a good call targeting Jessica, using the time honored strategy of going after the person that you feel least likely to have an immunity idol.
Or least likely to play an immunity idol. Because even if Jessica has one, she probably wasn't going to play because it was clear that the word was out there that it's going to be Cole or Joe. I was thinking for Jessica's sake, just I think 2 weeks ago we were like, she let Mike have that idol. And it's wouldn't it have been nice to have an idol this time? I don't think she would have played it. Or worse, she wouldn't have played it for herself.
Right. And it was funny though that Chrissy's justifications for voting or for targeting Jessica basically amounted to assuming that Jessica has no agency whatsoever. Seems to be a bit of a trend with Chrissy, but I guess we'll talk about that later. It wasn't a bad strategy just because she's right. I mean, why not target Jessica? Because you have to assume that Cole and or Joe would assume they're the bigger targets. And
that their tribe would assume the same.
Yeah, and playing your idol on playing your idol on Jessica would be quite a roll of the dice. So it's pretty low risk to target Jessica.
Yeah, and they couldn't vote Desi. So then the other choices are Mike or Jessica. I understand why you don't target Mike if Ben seems reticent to that, if it was even brought up at all. Now, the one thing I do wonder is, did Chrissy have Jessica just as kind of a sole backup plan? Definitely we're going to vote for Cole or Joe. That's our plan. That's what we want. Or is it that she was taking, that's what people wanted to do. They wanted to vote Cole or Joe because obviously they're the biggest threats. As much as we want to say Chrissy was, viewing Jessica as a non-threat, everybody she was with was oh no, it has to be Cole or Joe. Was she taking that and then was but what if? And then moved it to the target she really wanted, the person she actually found threatening. It's possible.
It is. Yeah. Chrissy's definitely had a trend in her voting pattern.
And I also should be clear, I think she's right. I think Jessica was the most dangerous player on that other side.
Well, I mean, at the very least, I think this was the right decision. This was the right target for this vote.
Yeah, because look what they accomplished. Joe carries danger, obviously, but he's a lot less dangerous now. And if they had voted for Joe, that would have been a disaster. So,
Yep.
And I just don't think Cole is actually that big a threat.
No,
eventually he can become a threat in that he'll win that immunity that you need to win. And that's a way he could be a threat to Ben. It's hey, if he even does form a pact that supersedes Cole, but then it's final five and Cole is immune. Well, guess who's getting voted out? So yeah, in that way, he could be a gum in the ointment. That's not the phrase.
Nope.
Is it? Nope.
Fly in the ointment.
I should just retire any ointment based metaphors.
Yeah.
I clearly don't know what ointment does. So that's where it could be a threat. But otherwise, everybody's already mad at the guy for eating all the food. Nobody's voting for him. In fact, this seems to be a bad thing for Cole, it probably is a bad thing for Cole, the way this went down. I also think this is the only scenario how Cole could actually win this season, as if the jury was littered with his people and he's the sole survivor going on an immunity run or something like that. And the only people that he sits next to are people that betrayed everyone. But like, if he had gone to the end with those, some form of the group that he was trying to, there's no way he wins. Somebody else in that group would have been more desirable a vote than the guy who eats all our food.
It also, as a guy who claims that he eats or was eating 8,000 calories per day before coming out there, I kind of feel like an immunity run is pretty unlikely.
Yeah, the only way it works is if he's always winning rewards too.
Yeah, exactly. You got to keep the calories coming, and he's not going to have that. If any sort of immunity challenge was going to play to his strength, he'd need to have the energy to use that strength, and he's not going to have it if he's not eating.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we've already seen the guy pass out. He's not a threat. And everybody, Ben is obsessed with that, but that's because I think he was using the language of threat to say, I want to vote out this guy that's pissing me off.
Yep.
Which, for other people is fine, but Lauren probably saw through that. And Mike, when he was saying it to Mike, it's like, as Mike explains, he's not a threat if he's with us, but clearly for Ben, he wasn't with him. And again, I think Ben was also right that the healers were going to stick together, and that wasn't a great situation for him. But yeah, I was impressed with what Chrissy did. I think, she laid out all of the potential, hazards and targets, and I think they landed on the right one. Everybody seemed to be, listening to her. Even the people who had just met her. What did you think about that time when she's sending, or just talking out in front of everybody with Ben about their secret plans?
I think it might have been slightly overblown. She could be entirely right that no one else could hear them. I did think it was kind of telling that Mike immediately sniffed out Chrissy as someone who seemed like a strategic mastermind. This is probably Chrissy's best episode of the season, as all the people that have been championing Chrissy for so long. I think at the very least, this episode gave you your best justification.
Yeah, I think they now have evidence. They don't have to, invent it. That's cool. Yeah, I think with the scene with Ben, I do think it was probably that her voice wasn't carrying that much. However, I think another reason why she wasn't worried about it is the person most likely to hear her was Ryan, who she was probably going to tell about the whole conversation anyway. But Ben doesn't know this, right? In fact, I bet Ben still doesn't know this, and I don't know if Ben ever will know the close bond that Kirsty and Ryan have. Which goes back to that whole... Yeah, but you actually don't know what's been happening in the time that you left. Maybe it's not always, again, not necessarily this situation, but maybe it's not always a great idea to just be like, I gotta get back with my original tribe, Zeke tried to get back with his original tribe, and that didn't work out so well for him. Because people, all forgot that he was actually aligned, or on an original tribe with people like Culpepper and Sierra Dawn Thomas and Debbie. Yeah, I think the other thing is she probably had a little bit too much to drink. And that might have also been why she was talking a little louder than she thought she was. Because I've been around that happens. Come on, I am being quiet.
Yeah, drunks are not great secret keepers.
Yeah. Alright, so I think, so where we're at is I think we're fine with the decision Ben made. I think, I'm certainly impressed with the moves that Chrissy made. Let's go maybe possibly in a different direction and talk about Joe, who is about that life.
He is. It was great watching Joe. I mean, it was a fantastic disaster. I really enjoyed it. I love that he puts the idol around his neck and then proceeds to just play it for himself. There was never even the looking around reading people thing that he claimed to have done at the previous tribal council. Made absolutely no sense to put the idol around your neck if you're going to play it for yourself. It was fun to watch him fail.
Yeah, and him and Mike to that for point. They were all acting really buddy-buddy at Tribal, which doesn't do anything to dispel the notion that, it's the 5 healers. Joe, feeling that they had a majority, when at best you have a plurality if everybody just votes, along party lines. And I think I sometimes feel like this is maybe a problem that Americans have, that you just only understand like politics that is like head to head, and don't understand that like two other groups can team up against you. So everybody always talks in the show about majorities when pluralities are enough. Cause yeah, he was wrong. 5 people aren't enough. So when he gets all mad that, you know, why'd you bring Ben on this? I should say the one thing in Joe's favor. He was 100% right. Bringing Ben in didn't work, but it's like, yeah, but what's your solution? We need 7. What do you got?
Yeah. I really enjoyed Joe being bad at Survivor. It was fun to watch.
That's the thing we need to clear. It's like, yeah, he's bad. That's fine. In fact, that's what I've been saying. It's like, I need somebody to be good or bad. I need something. I need something to talk about. And that's why we thought Joe might be able to save the season. Not because I had a lot of faith in his abilities and him being the most strategic player out there. Nah, man. He's not. He's just the most aggressive. And that's fine. Be something in the ointment and do something with the season.
Oh, I was so disappointed you didn't go with be aggressive, be aggressive.
It was almost there, wasn't it?
So close.
Cause yeah, this is another example how, you know, he's always been this, you know, Kmart version of Tony. And now he gets to like just also be like, you know, the bad cover version of Malcolm. Like, I think that's it. Like, he's seen the seasons. He's watched Survivor. He's, you know, an excitable guy. He wants to do stuff, but he's just not good at it. So he's just trying all these things and it's just like, yeah, okay.
Now, in fairness to him, Tony also played an idol incorrectly. So, you know.
Yeah, but he at least played it a little more correctly in that he didn't play it for himself, right? He didn't play it for himself, but then he had to guess. And this kind of goes back to the whole why you vote for Jessica. And maybe it is a little sexist on Chrissy's part, but it's also recognizing the implicit sexism that goes at merge votes. You know, that they typically go towards a young man. And everybody's okay with that. And then, yeah, that's the same thing what Tony was doing. He knew it wasn't for him. He just couldn't figure out who it was for. Joe didn't even bother puzzling any of that out. Because ultimately, if Joe had looked around and known like they weren't worried about playing for him, he probably would have played it for Cole. Cole would have been the LJ. And just like that other group, they voted, not LJ or Tony.
Blonde.
Jeffra. This wasn't even necessarily even the Ardgardo maneuver. This is that maneuver, only, you know, cast slip that time. So yeah, no, I also had fun about Joe and, just talking fast and, deuces and all of that. And it's more fun that in the end, he falls on his face.
Yeah, and plus the About That Life thing just made me think of NBA Twitter, which is just a thing that I love, so.
Yeah, who was that? He's not about that life.
It was someone that was playing for George Karl. I remember that.
Well, I think he's talking about Serge Ibaka, which was weird, because it's like, that dude comes from, like, war-torn countries. Anyway, Let's go deep on this. We got time.
Yeah, this is why people tune into the Purple Rock podcast, to hear this kind of deep NBA analysis.
All right, so we will continue along this lines of, not praise by talking about Cole, who clearly doesn't understand social niceties.
I'm on board. I love it. I am totally fine with Cole not being aware of how he's perceived. I find that fun to watch. He definitely gets the bubble treatment in real life. I think there was like 3 or 4 of our commenters that tried to compare him to the John Hamm character on 30 Rock, where he's just so handsome that he doesn't realize that people don't like, or that people treat him differently because he's so handsome. So I'm enjoying the Cole arc as it was.
Yeah, and they're telling him, you can't do that. And it's like, why not? I would always do this in my own life. I would just eat the food. I eat the food out of the fridge at work. Nobody seems to mind. Some people even laugh about it. It's how we bond. Yeah, no, absolutely. This is just, privilege personified. And it is kind of fun.
It's funny to watch. Cause it's that entitlement without any real world consequences here. It's just entertaining.
Yeah, now I could also understand if it would be triggering and incredibly frustrating if you're watching. If you have a Cole in your life, or frankly, you're somebody who, like, everybody is a Cole in life compared to you. Oh yeah, no, it would drive you nuts. If you're somebody like Ben, who's maybe had to deal with Coles all his life, maybe there's a bunch of them in his unit or whatever. He's just like, no, I don't even care if this is the right decision or not. And as I said, I think it was a neutral decision. I'm just not playing with that dude. He's got to go. And then ultimately, Chrissy says, well, yeah, but not so much. Because at the end of this, Ben still has to watch Cole eat the food. And you think he's going to stop now? Eat all the cinnamon sticks, dude.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, do the whole Jatia thing. Like, hey, if you're going down, make it miserable for everybody else.
Yeah. All right. Now, your only path to victory if you're Cole is winning challenges. How are you going to win challenges if you aren't getting your calories?
That's
Every
right.
fish you catch is for you. We're going to need 2 fishermen. I don't care. There's my fish and whatever you guys get for yourself. I'll eat it raw.
Phrasing.
Indeed. All right. Next, we've got Mike, who I think had a pretty decent episode, despite a losing effort. And what do you think about his kind of attempts to go between, his group and Ben and trying to, keep the whole group together?
Yeah, Mike was kind of like my dark horse for MVP of this episode. I really liked what he did. I think he did the right thing, voting with the healers this time and hoping the others would come along with him. Or maybe he even knew they weren't going to. I think it was safe because he knows he's not the target anyway.
And he's not going to lose any points by voting for somebody not.
Exactly.
Unless it gets out that he was the one who picked Chrissy. Then he's losing lots of points. Sure.
But then, after he survives this vote, which I assume he knew he was going to, he can work on an alternate plan then. It feels like he has options. I even liked it how that you kind of mentioned it earlier, tribal council. Joe is talking about how they're so tight or whatever. And Mike is like seeing how that makes them look like a solid 5 says, well, no, actually, remember we had beef on day 1. You're accusing me of finding idols. He's trying to like, hey, keep that SHRT down.
Yeah, so he was saying that, but because, his natural reaction is to joke about these things, to break the tension of situations, which I can relate to. It did also just kind of come off. It's like, see, they're all so close-knit that they can joke about this stuff.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I also don't think it mattered a thing. I think the vote going in was Jessica. All 7 of them. I don't think anything changed at the tribal council other than making them feel better about their decision.
Right, but it was still fine for him to try to play it off like there isn't a solid 5 there.
Yeah, and it would be even better, and we don't know if he was or he wasn't. If he did that a lot, like in conversations, it's like, I'm not close to these guys. I was going to be the first boot. I'm with you, Ben. I'm with you, Lauren. But we need them. We can easily be a brain trust in this group of 6. It's not that hard. Desi doesn't understand Survivor. Joe is a madman. Cole's an idiot. But nope. Didn't work out. I was impressed by him recognizing that Chrissy was a threat. And not just because we've seen her be strategic and then we saw her be very strategic this episode. But frankly, it's part of what I was saying last week, that we need to redefine what threat is. That Cole and JP are not threats. Whereas the lady who seems to be doing really well in puzzles, that's a threat.
Yeah, exactly. I like that the only flaw that I saw was in pointing out Chrissy. He was saying, we got to get rid of her. She's smart. Like, everyone knows you're a doctor. People, rightly or incorrectly, will think that doctors are smart. Don't start a campaign of targeting the smart.
Yeah, just like, buff guys shouldn't start the campaign of let's vote out the challenge pet, although they do all the time.
Yep.
Oh, and that it might be a mistake to say that every woman in the game is a target when you happen to be one, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I see what you're saying. Speaking of women in the game, let's move on to our next player.
Wow, what a descriptor for Lauren. Looked like maybe she wanted to stay with her tribes or her swapped tribe at the beginning of the episode, but clearly by the end of the episode had changed her mind on that. What did you think about her moves?
I saw her argument for wanting to stick with them. I think this was probably with Mike, with Jessica. It might have been the only group that's really, and with Ben, the only group that's ever really talked to her about final type conversations, right? I imagine early in the Hustler situation, it was more like, yeah, we'll keep you. Yeah, we choose you over Patrick. But there wasn't enough time to really solidify anything. And if there was, it was with Allie, who is no longer in the game anymore. So I like that. But at the same time, she's not going down with the shit, man. You're not forcing rocks. Not when you're somebody who probably won't get targeted for, quite a while. So right. I think it was probably ideal for her to try to keep that healers plus situation going, because I think she's also the person that could have been a useful vote to, exploit the cracks in that. But once Ben decided he wasn't going to do it, then yeah, you don't do it either. That's not hard to puzzle out.
Right. Yeah. And I like that she was not rigid in her thinking, like we thought her curmudgeon instincts had kicked in some earlier votes. This was very like practical reasons. Like, okay, well, this is not worth fighting for. Just go with Ben. We can change stuff up later if we want to. Mike, who she had a relationship with, wasn't getting targeted. They can always pick him back up later if they want to. She did fine. She did the right thing.
Yeah. And, some people complain that we didn't see her decision. Yeah. Again, they don't give you the answer before the episode is over. This is the dumbest complaint in all of Survivor. The edit didn't tell me who was going home before it went home. There was enough evidence to suggest that group was in trouble and that Lauren might not be there. We'll find out what her decision is when the votes are cast. Welcome to Survivor.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to Ryan, who actually really didn't do much this episode other than suck in laughable ways.
Oh, how dare you. Ryan is the king of the social game, Andy. He was working that social game in ways that, casual Survivor fans like you probably didn't pick up on.
Yeah, so we saw him, reconnect with Devin, but that's not really a hard sell. Hey, we're thinking about voting out Cole. Cool, all right. That sounds great, dude. Let's keep going with that. Like, so, master of the social game. But other than that, it's just, Jeff Probst just owning him over and over again. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I do love that I got to watch him try to get a high five and just get left hanging by multiple people.
Master of the social game!
Yes, I loved that he immediately failed out of that immunity challenge, like Crystal Cox speeds. Fantastic. Yeah, and I like that the master of the social game also got undercut by Chrissy calling herself the master of the social game this week. So, yeah, it was not an ideal Ryan episode.
So what do we think about these two, just constantly bragging about their social game? Is this a thing? Is this something that alerts us that they're getting a bad edit, a good edit? Does it show that they're, unnecessarily arrogant or they can't understand what they're really good at, or, are they right? Yeah,
I'm trying not to read too much into it. It could go either way, depending on how you lay out the rest of the story. It could be a Michelle from Co Wrong situation where you have to start having people give confessionals that say they have a great social game because you can't show it on TV. But I mean, for now, I don't know that it's necessarily good or bad that both he and Chrissy are talking up their social game.
Yeah, I think it could go either way the same because it's tough to show. Unless you're somebody who's just wildly charismatic, like a Parvati or a JT, that it becomes obvious, or somebody that's, so like strategically social, like a Kim. Social game has been notoriously difficult to capture, so maybe the show actually thinks that they are capturing it by having them say it. I think in general, you would rather not have to say it. It doesn't look good if you are saying it, but I'm not yet ready to say, what this points to one way or another. And I think, what you think it points to probably comes down to how you feel about these players.
Yeah, and I don't have a really solid opinion formed of either of them, so it doesn't really influence my thinking in any way.
Speaking of not having much of a solid opinion formed, let's talk about Desi, who won the challenge.
She did. Desi is perfectly fine. She's like a
perfectly
more invisible.
Fine.
No, indeed. Works on a lot of levels. She's kind of like an Amanda Kimmel, just a little more invisible. And it is weird. It is weird to me that she's hidden because it's not like these other people are super compelling narrators. I think just Desi is a baseline narrator, just as 90% of the rest of the cast is. So it is weird that we're not seeing her much. Like, I do wonder why that is.
Yeah. So people are trying, on our site especially, and others, really hard to make Desi a thing.
Sure.
And I implore you to stop. Okay? You know why they probably aren't using her very much? Because she's boring. Because she doesn't know Survivor. Because she's not doing anything and she doesn't matter. When you celebrate every player that fits a certain type, you kind of are saying that it's like, I don't care if they're actually good at anything, I'm just gonna talk them up. We have no evidence to suggest anything interesting about Desi, other than she is spectacularly beautiful, and she projects some sense of intelligence, which is the only thing that prevents her from being the female JP. Commenter Hurley Tennis brought that up, and I think he was just trying to make, coming off of what I say, but yeah, kind of. Either of them has contributed to the season is, they're attractive. She's much more, but he's still an attractive dude. They're good at challenges. And they don't talk because they have nothing to say. So don't. She's not your hero.
That's where my Amanda Kimmel comparison came from, because, I mean, Amanda made it really deep in the game, 2 seasons, and she's fine. I mean, I don't know what the defining characteristic of Amanda is, other than being terrible at a final tribal council. I don't know that you're going to have that defining characteristic show up in Desi.
Yeah, so, no, she's not your robbed edit goddess. She's just a boring player who made the merge and will be taken out sometime in an unceremonious way. And here's the thing. How many other boring beauty queens have you supported in the past? That's why she's on the show. They probably saw her headshot when agents put it out there and was like, wow, she looks great and aesthetics are important to the show. Let's put her on. Maybe they saw her, speak at her beauty pageants. It's like, oh, she's also very well spoken. Doesn't mean she's interesting television. She's not.
In defense of our various commenters, I do believe that they have stuck up for Danny from Guatemala, who fits that mold precisely.
And there's some of that Desi, Danny stuff going because people are desperately reaching. Maybe she's doing the Danny thing where she's just not giving them anything because she's a great strategist. Cool. Then don't be on my TV. I don't care, man. The show doesn't owe you anything. If you go on their show and you suck and you're boring, you're not on it. And I don't care if it's your personal adventure. It's not their duty to show you if you're not giving them anything. And I'm pretty confident they're not. Because do you think the show wouldn't want this astoundingly attractive person in their promos? Because I kind of feel like they would.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I'm a little shocked that we're not seeing much of her, because the other people aren't super compelling. Like, if she's saying the exact same stuff, at least she's, attractive and well-spoken. Show her doing it. So the fact that we're not seeing that suggests to me that, maybe she's just not even saying the right things.
Yeah. Now, I will say maybe another reason why people are holding out hope for Desi is that she hasn't proven to be a zero like so many of these others. But I think the absence of Desi is speaking volumes in this respect. All right, last person to talk about is the person who will no longer be around, and that's Jessica. 2 weeks ago, I said 2 things that could help turn the season around would be Allie or Jessica winning. That worked out really good. Yeah. Where do we think it all went wrong for
her? Probably when she started crushing on Cole, or being placed in that healer's tribe. I mean, I don't know that it was, actually being on the healer's tribe is not necessarily a terrible thing for her, because it got her to the merge unscathed. So could have been worse. But yeah, I think once she sort of cast her lot with Cole, she was kind of doomed.
Yeah, and many, somebody says she could have tossed Cole aside, and the truth is no. She really, literally could not have. Right. This was her first tribal council. No, I don't think she ever would have, and also I agree that she shouldn't have. Yeah, he's not a threat. He's your dunderhead. You keep him. Why get rid of somebody who's not going to vote for you in favor of keeping people who will? However, what she needed to do is distance herself a little bit more from Cole, because clearly Ben and Lauren, but especially Ben, recognized that she was spending all her time with him, which is probably not literally true, but what felt like it. It was obvious to people that she and Cole were a pair, and it needed to not be. She needed to toss him aside and make Final Four plans, her, Mike, Lauren, and Ben, and make them believe it, and nurture it so that they continued to believe it, and she didn't do that. So that, when Chrissy's like, hey, how about Jessica? Maybe Ben's like, how about not? How about just Cole? How about that? I'm willing to vote Cole. So I think that could have been the one thing she could have done differently, but otherwise, just kind of didn't work out. She didn't go to tribal council at all. So that her tribe became the bigger target because there were more of them. Not quite a majority, Joe, but still more of them. So I do think, maybe if she had made it clear to Ben that Ben was more important to her than these other people, primarily Cole, she might have had a shot, but ultimately, voting her out was the right move. Yeah, and again, even keeping that idol instead of letting Mike get it, I think she would have played it for Cole and it would have been so much worse.
Yeah.
And not because she's love struck or anything, but because Joe's safe. The other person we heard it was going to be is Cole. Let's win this right now. And then she'd go home and that would have been awful.
Yeah, I think she would have assumed that she wasn't a target. So the odds of her actually playing it on herself were going to be super low anyway.
Well, without having an idol, she assumed she wasn't a target. Like, she flat out said, I never thought it was going to be me. If I thought it was going to be me, I would have, told Mike to play it for me. I don't think he would have. She didn't think it was going to be her. Which proves that Chrissy made a really good move. Nobody thought it was going to be for Jessica. And that secret didn't get out either, so that's good on them. Yeah, so I think ultimately, if she had maybe made it clear more that Cole was just, a shield and a useful idiot, she might have had a shot. But ultimately, like, going into this episode, I thought that it was going to be 7-on-5, and that's what it was,
Yeah, I don't really see anything along the path of her game where she could have, changed course and rescued herself in any significant way. Like you said, she could have tried to distance herself from Cole, but when he was on her tribe every single day he was out there, he's a familiar face. She likes him. They were getting along. Yeah, I don't know that it would have worked.
Yeah, and just even the other options. I mean, apparently Joe did think she was her number one. Like, he's confirmed that on Twitter. So she did things. And the way this worked out is that they had to take out the person that was least obvious, and they chose right. Maybe if Desi hadn't won immunity, Jessica's still in this game. Although I kind of feel like they would have targeted Jessica as a greater threat than Desi. So, that's sometimes the way it happens. She was outmaneuvered by other players.
All right, let's move on to your question that you came up for this week's podcast.
Yeah, so the other significant thing that happened, besides all the maneuvering that comes with the merge, was all the eating that comes with the merge. And as you alluded to at the beginning, just smoothly integrated product placement.
So smooth.
And I'll just say right now, and I think I've said this before, I don't care. I don't care that Survivor does it. I do feel like, it's worth making fun of, and we're about to, because it's so out of place. You can't naturally put product integration in a world where they're supposed to, create an illusion of, remoteness and, transported to an older time. But I also like the show being on television, and thus if they get, revenue streams that keep that from happening, I'll just bite the bullet. It's fine. I don't pay for network television. Nobody does. This is how it's paid for, is by companies, giving them money to mention them. And I also fast forward through every commercial. So if they have to do it, they have to do it. But what I love is how everybody just goes nuts over it. And it's always like this weird mix. It's like, they're starving. Any food will do.
Yep.
But then they're like, like Joe calling out menu items and all of that is like, that's just some savvy TV hogs going on right there.
Yes. I love the competition for who can get the most TV time during the product placement segment by being the most enthusiastic for the product in question.
And this was a pretty good ad for them, right? Like, everybody's going nuts. And before that, it's like, these people are dying. They had the drone shot of Devin, wasting away. Nobody has needed Outback Steakhouse more than these people, and we shall bestow it to them. But yeah, and they just all going crazy. Now, it just made me wonder, what's the worst restaurant that you can think of that you wouldn't still be psyched to eat at if you had been on Survivor for a couple of weeks. Because, Outback Steakhouse is, probably right up there. But, I would be like, oh my God, food, it's cooked. There's a lot of it. I love Outback Steakhouse. Whereas, in the real world, somebody's like, want to go to Outback Steakhouse? I'd be like, why do you hate me?
Right.
So what did you come up with? Because I know you really struggled with this, in part because, for real, you probably have the second worst taste in food in the Purple Rock podcast staff.
In that I actually like a more diverse set of foods than most of you do.
No, you like stuff that tastes like cardboard. That's your kind of thing. That's what you want.
Right. That's a diverse taste.
That's right. I hate sugar and flavors. You like some flavors, but
Sure. So for me, TGI Fridays, and specifically because I've eaten there exactly one time in my entire life, and it led to some unspeakable moments in my bathroom afterwards, gave me some long-term PTSD and has caused me to never, ever go back there, to the point that I used to drive by it and look at it and be like, oh, get the shivers. It was very unpleasant. But if I'm on Survivor for 3 weeks and starving, I might be like, you know what? I'm going back I'm going to roll the dice that it's not going to do the exact same thing. Going all in for some TGI Fridays.
Yeah, you would literally thank God.
Yep.
Maybe figuratively. We'll work on that one. So I think the answer right now, politically, that we're supposed to give is Papa John's, right? We'd be like, oh no, Papa John's so evil. My handy pizza check sheet of who was good and who was bad has them in the bad column. But in truth, I'd be like, give me that Papa John's. Like, Frank, I've been in work meetings where we work through lunch and they ordered Papa John's and I'm still like, I'll eat it, even though it's horrible pizza. Now that was before, it became the pizza of choice of the Nazi party. So that is, I think that's the political answer. But yeah, as you said, I imagine the food at TGI Fridays is horrible. We don't have those here. But I went with Taco Bell for similar reasons as you. I just don't know if it's worth the trouble. It's you get Taco Bell, it's that's not good, man. That's just a gross food eating challenge, and that would punish me. And if they at least made it to order, because that's the other thing about this Outback Steakhouse. That's not typical Outback Steakhouse they're getting, alright? That's not some, minimum wage chef cooking his 100th piece of steak for the night. That is probably this is a commercial. They probably brought the best cuts of meat they had, a real chef preparing 16, because some people got extra steaks. When they were cutting into those looked pretty good. So if they made my Taco Bell order, I'd be like, I'll have a tortilla shell. Maybe some cheese. You can throw the lettuce and tomato in there, maybe. I'm a little concerned. I could use some sour cream, but keep that meat away from me. I can't pay the rent on that one.
I feel like you were rolling dice with sour cream there. I don't know if I would have.
Yeah, I know.
That
was probably a little, maybe I just like a dip a little bit, just a little bit.
See, I feel like I would dive into the Taco Bell. I'd be like, you know what? I know the consequences going in. I know what I'm signing up for. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to do it. I haven't eaten Taco Bell in a decade, but
yeah, that's the thing. That's why you have the worst opinions. I don't even eat red meat much, so what do I care?
Well, it would wreck me, but I'd go for it.
See, every few years, I actually end up you know what? I'm going to order from Taco Bell. Maybe we're at a mall or something that's at the food court. And I know it's the wrong decision, but I think I'm craving sour cream at that time. In the real world, when I'm having a full, meals and all of me, it's still a bad idea. So there would be so much worse. It could evacuate you from the game, literally. So that's my call. Readers and comments, let us know what you got. All right. So as we said, I think we kind of made it clear that the two players we were most rooting for, if it were any, were Allie and Jessica. So much for that. So I think it's time for us to pick new players.
Yeah, and I've got a scheme that I pitched to you, and here it is. I don't have a real, true rooting interest. I haven't formed enough of a connection with any of these players. None of them are speaking to me in the ways that I want them to. But the season is more fun when I have someone that I can fixate on and root for and be like, do it. I want you to win this season. So in the absence of any like tangible factors that I could put my finger on, I'm going to go to my dear friends at random.org. I'm going to insert every name that's left, and I'm going to let it pick a favorite for me.
All right. So before you do that, I want to pick who the 3 players I most want you to get. That would be most fun for me to get. Everybody else, play along at home, but you do it right now or pause and then do it. So number one.
I know who one of them has to be.
Number 1 is JP, obviously.
Yes. Okay. Yeah,
it would be
number
the best.
1 with a bullet.
If you get JP, I want that hype post on my desk tomorrow. All right? Well, maybe tomorrow, next week. Okay? So that's number 1. Number 2 is Desi, the female JP. In part because it would be cliche as hell for you to have to pick Desi as your favorite player.
It would.
And also, I'd like to see you jump through the hoops of, like, you know, talking about the greatness of Desi without being gross. Because as we said, like, all she's really got so far is she seems like she is super attractive. But we learned in Kagiyan that, you know, it doesn't play very well. We're just lusting openly after women. So I'd like you to see how you thread that needle. Okay. And then, number 3 is Ashley, who would be the female, JP if Desi didn't exist. So those are who I'm getting. Any one of those would make me very happy.
That is a solid list. I figured JP and Ashley had to be on it. The third was up for debate, but yeah, that's solid. All right. So just to prove this is completely authentic, I'm on random.org right now. I got my list in front of me. I'm going to tell you what the time is right now as I'm hitting randomize. It is 11:59. I'm going to screenshot this, going to put it on the website so you can see what the actual answer is.
People just realize what you do for this podcast. Yes, it's 11:59 for
11:59 p.m. where I am. That's right. Okay. So, before I do this, one last second. Before I pull the trigger. Okay. So say I get a number 1 and then that person's gone next week. Do I move down to like number 2 and have to root for that person, or do I just do this?
Yes, that's what we're doing. We're not gonna have to maybe do it all the way to the final, but yes, this gimmick needs to survive at least 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. So I see. I was wondering if like, does this person last until I develop a real rooting interest, or okay. So we'll just
no. They last until they last.
Okay, got it.
If it's the final 2 somehow, and it's like, you know, Ben and JP.
I gotta be all in for JP. All right. We're now at midnight, and now I'm going to hit randomize. Here we go. Number 1 on the list, Devin. Devin is number 1. Chrissy, number 2. Go ahead.
You know what? That is actually kind of perfect for this season, because this is the season of neither good nor bad opinions, and that is Devin personified. He's fine. All right. He's a good dude. Whatever.
All right. Let's see if I.
So you finding a way to root for Devin is a way of you finding a way to root for this season. Now, I'm actually also going to pick somebody to root for, only I'm not going to, leave it up to random chance. I've actually used the evidence of this episode and this season, and I now have somebody to root for. And as longtime listeners will note, I tend to root for the person who I just think is playing the best, whose game is most interesting to me and seems most effective to me. And that person revealed themselves this episode, and it's Chrissy. I am Team Chrissy.
Of course you are. Why would you not be?
I mean, I wouldn't not be, because she's only voted for women this season. And I can think of many ways that will continue to be the trend for at least 3 more votes. But she impressed me, and I'm all in for a season that Chrissy dominates like she did tonight. And if she does it as a villain, let's do it. Let's unapologetically slash throats and get to the finals and just say, yeah, I played you guys. You wanted me to this, I was that. Now, sadly, that would probably result in like her getting swept by whoever she's facing, but wouldn't it be amazing if she won? As I said, that this season would be most interesting if Allie or Jessica won, because I felt like they would have to do really interesting things to do it. I think the same thing is now true of Chrissy. I was worried about a season where Chrissy and Ryan dominate and it'd be really boring, but she doesn't get to hide anymore. She has already been identified as a target, so she will have to do a lot of stuff to keep this game in her favor. That would be interesting to me. I hope she votes out a man next week, though, to make it a little easier for me.
Well, it would help if she voted out Devin and then she gets voted out, because number 3 on my list is Ashley. So if you're rooting for me to go hard for Ashley, ooh, phrasing, then yeah, you want Devin and Chrissy gone the next 2 weeks.
If Devin was gone next week, we could be the podcast team Chrissy.
Ooh, what a twist that I couldn't have seen coming.
Yeah, so, and I'm not just doing this to, like, be disagreeable, to troll anybody. I think Chrissy is the best player out there. I want her to see her continue to do so, because I think it could be interesting.
As I said earlier, I think this was easily her best episode. And if you're looking for justification for your fandom of Chrissy, you have it. You have some now.
Yeah. And I don't need her to be likable. In fact, I think it'll be more enjoyable for me if she's not. If she is just the cutthroat player that just owns this game, I'm up for it. I want that. I'm fine with it. Whoever's doing it. So, yeah, I'm totally on board for Team Chrissy. I think a lot of people now are moving to Team Ben. And I gotta say, like, on social media, the guy's hilarious.
He's good. Yeah, I almost want to develop a rooting interest for Ben just because he's actually pretty good on Twitter.
But he's still not really doing for me, Like, he took over the Lauren role of grumpy survivor this week. Even though, as with Lauren this entire season, I get it. But it's just like, I guess for me, I am less interested in survivor decisions when they're clearly just personally motivated. Even though I feel like that's probably the norm rather than the exception, it's just less interesting for me. And the caveat that maybe that's been the truth for all of Chrissy's votes so far, but I feel like there's also been strategic reasons for them. And again, yeah, it might have been personal reasons for Jessica, but I also think I think she was the right call. I really liked how Chrissy managed this whole thing, and if she can do more votes like that, I'm on board. But yeah, Ben's fine. He seems like a good dude, but that's all I got so far.
Okay, so let's move on to our gimmick of the season, the heroic healing and hustling moments. Let's start with the heroes. Who was your hero of the week?
So my heroic moment of the week goes to Joe for ordering more than one steak. Hacking the reward. So, Probe said you get a steak, but he's just like, hey, can I have more than one? That's how I like my meal done. And it even looks out for Cole. And it clearly blew Cole's mind that he could have more than one. What a hero.
Game changer. So for me, my hero of the week was Devin. For walking so slowly, he actually became like the anti-hustler. And it was symbolic of him being ready to give up the ridiculous labels that this season started with, right as we are shedding them and merging. So bravo, Devin, for your heroic act this week.
Whoa, are you just improvising this because now you're on Team Devin?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all 3 of these are going to be Devin this week.
Fantastic. My healing moment of the week goes to Cole for trying to build that bridge with Ben and apologizing. I even liked the one tactic where when Ben was trying to give him an out and he didn't take it. It almost seemed like he had some self-awareness and stuff, but clearly he didn't. It didn't matter. And Ben was just like, yeah, I hear you, but I don't care. But still, well, way to try to heal that bond once people told you to do it, Cole.
Yeah. I actually could not possibly think of a healing moment for Devin, so instead, I'm going to give this to Joe, who healed Tony's reputation by proving how fucking hard it is to be Tony.
Especially in a post-Tony world. But, Joe is what everybody thought Tony was and why they always said we were ridiculous for saying that he could win. How many more seasons do you think it'll take before we stop patting ourselves on the back for that? 30.
I mean, it's kind of going to be our thing.
Yeah. All right, what do you got for the hustle?
The one time we ever got it right.
What do you got for the hustle moment?
Cole for eating cinnamon sticks, because I feel like, wasn't the whole point of the cinnamon challenge thing to prove that like eating that much cinnamon will make you vomit? Like, I feel like he was trying his own on-island cinnamon challenge just because he was hungry.
Against all odds, that's literally what I have written down for my hustle moment of the week. Cole trying to gain sustenance from a cinnamon stick. So it must be real. It must be true. There we go. We'll send the award in the mail.
Unanimous.
All right. Predictions for next week. We got to predict who will be going home. Thankfully, only one person.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to go by the numbers again. It's going to be Joe or Cole as the targets, and one of them is going to go home. I think the following week we'll probably switch it up. But for this coming week, Joe or Cole targets, and I'll say it's Joe.
So I have a fun prediction, and I have my actual prediction. I just wanted to say the fun prediction because I've been doing well this season, which some people have started to notice that that's unusual. And the reason why it's unusual is that I often more want to show off by coming up with interesting yet plausible, which makes me completely separate from, say, Mark, ways that something could go, instead of just saying the obvious thing. So I'm going to say the obvious thing at the end, but a fun way that this could go down is Cole wins immunity, and I think maybe Cole also gets the idol, or everybody sees who has the idol. So you think it would be Joe, but now Lauren is waffling which side she wants to go on, and Chrissy decides to kill the flipper and get rid of Lauren, which is kind of plausible and also would fit Chrissy's established pattern.
Good point.
However, I am also going to predict Joe, largely because I think, as we saw next time on Survivor, there's this big, wrestling match in the sand for presumably the idol. We don't know. Maybe they're digging in the wrong spot altogether. In a way that will make it clear that Joe does not currently have an idol, and thus let's vote him out now. Because the big fear that Joe presents is that he can find idols. That's not a thing if, Cole's holding that idol, if Chrissy's holding that idol, if somebody else wrestles it away from them altogether. Vote out Joe and you don't have an idol, and I think they will know he doesn't have an idol.
Yeah, and we get the very exciting prospect of Chrissy targeting a man in a vote for the first time next week.
Or everybody else says, oh, let's do Joe, and she tries to come up with a reason why it should be Desi. Yes. And then they're just like, no, come on. It's
She's
Joe.
Going to be like, come on, Desi won immunity last week. We got to take her out.
Yeah, and I don't like the way Ashley's looking at us. Anyway, all right, so I think that's all for this week. As usual, you can find our predictions, our podcast, our live blog on our website at www.purplerockpodcast.com, where you can be there and hang out with the best commenters on the internet.
They're so great, especially because the AV Club has decided to nuke their comment section and turn it into a cesspool. A very confusing to navigate cesspool. You can also find us on Twitter. Speaking of
I was actually trying to set you up for that, shout out to our blah, 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 blah.
Hey, listen, I'm getting there. Just ride the train. We're getting to that station. You can also find us on Twitter. I'm at Purple Rock John. Andy is at Purple Rock Andy. The show is at Purple Rock Pod. And we have some very cool commenters that went to the Rob Has a Podcast's live episode in New York. A big group of them, a shockingly large group of them, actually met up because of our site, supported us and Rob. More importantly, they supported Rob monetarily. Whatever, not just going to dwell on that. But anyway, so they all met up, and of course, they had a great time because, much like every other commenter on our site, they're very cool, fun people.
Yeah, maybe one of these times when they all get together, a staffer might join them, but I don't want to promise anything. And frankly, you guys probably weren't missing anything. No. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm getting at is the best comment section on the internet is that, people formed friendly relations enough that they, left their homes to spend time with each other. Some flew across continents. I don't know if I would go to another part of the city, but maybe one day. Maybe for these people. I mean, you and I formed this thing, 4 years ago and have never met and probably never will. But exactly. Bravo to the commenters on the internet. You guys are, a fun-loving, great group.
Indeed. Anything else for this week?
Nah, play some music.
Let me